throws, swings.
There it is! Get out! Get out! All right!
Hit number 4192.
Swing on and miss. And Tom Browning has pitched a perfect game.
And a high fly ball, center field. He hit it a ton. It's gone. And the 2010 Central Division Championship belongs to the Cincinnati Reds. And Homer Bailey has pitched a no-hitter.
You're listening to the Redlegs Radio Report with Jason and Todd on Bowling Green's home of the Reds, ESPN Radio.
Welcome to ESPN 102.7 Bowling Green, Kentucky, the Redlegs Radio Report. You can hear us throughout the season on Saturdays, of course, from 9 to 10 Central. And we're joined today by Reds Hall of Fame broadcaster who recently retired after 46 years, and his lovely wife, who's a Marshall University graduate, Ashland, Kentucky native, and star of Laura's Lean commercials. And both are regulars to our show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marty and Amanda Brennaman. How you guys doing?
Good, thank you. How about you?
Doing well. I apologize that my cohort Todd couldn't join us tonight, but I'm so happy that you guys could carve out some time for us and our listeners.
Anything for you, Jason. You've been a big supporter of ours, and you've been your station's been as good as anybody in the network or on the network that the Reds have had over all the years I've been around. So whatever we can do for you folks down there in Bowling Green, we're more than happy to.
And I'm happy to put on lipstick that people can actually see for a change. I've literally had no lipstick on in 8 or 9 months, right? So happy.
I did get this. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I did get this from our good buddy Joe Z. He sent me this, which is the Marty Brennaman Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame. Of course, it didn't happen. Induction thing they were giving one on April 26, 2020. So that was a Christmas gift that we got from our good buddy Jose Hughes, and so that's
very good.
We were in full lockdown mode in April, right? That was the height of the first kind of wave of it. Yeah,
pretty much. So have they? Do you know if the Reds have rescheduled that yet? I know it's probably too far out to tell.
They're not. They haven't. As far as this year's concerned, that. Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, tentatively they've got it set for July 17th and 18th.
Okay, great.
And I really believe that far down the line with the companies now being approved by the FDA to give the inoculations, that by July, it probably will be at a point where we'd be able to pull that off.
Now, I don't want to break any HIPAA laws, but I did see that, Amanda, you put this up on some social media that you guys were, I don't know if you were in an early COVID test or what was that you were
yeah,
in a trial?
We both, in fact, not just Marty and I, my mom, my uncle, my sister, 2 good friends, our pet sitter is also a good friend, are part of the Johnson & Johnson COVID trial going on through CTI Research here in Cincinnati. And I found out about it through my personal physician and good friend who's very involved with the research on all this and wanted to know if we'd be interested in getting involved in a stage 3 trial. And I am happy to be involved in anything that may quicken this pandemic going away. So I went a little over a month ago, and it's very, very thorough. They put you through a COVID test. They check all your vitals, ask you every medical question, like from the surgery I had when I was 4. I mean, they're very thorough. And you agree to be part of this trial. You get a shot. You have no idea if you're getting the real vaccine or the placebo. Based upon my reaction, about 4 hours after that shot, I had a fever, very, very low fever, like 99.7, I think is as high it's got up to. I had chills, my legs were aching, and I had a terrible headache. So all of that is classic immune response. Mm-hmm. Nobody else had that, unfortunately, so we don't have any idea what they got. We all hope they all got it, but another one of the benefits to being in this trial is if we did not get the vaccine, then those of us that got the placebo, once this gets approved through the FDA, they will have a chance to get the real shot before, frankly, it goes out to the whole public. So, I felt like we kind of did our part, and hopefully we can see this come to an end, and not only for baseball's sake, but just for everything else in the world, the economy, jobs, schools, all of it. Let's get it behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to kind of get right into some baseball stuff here. I've got questions for both of you, so don't worry. We've got equal time. We're going to do some equal time here on the Redlegs Radio Report. So really, Marty, what are your thoughts on the 2021 Reds? And some are saying that right now that the Reds are kind of doing a salary dump, and it's really this offseason. Is this kind of the nature of, in your opinion, I guess, of the revenue loss from last year, not having fans in the stands, and of course a lot of the revenue that kind of went away from that the Reds are just trying to kind of make ends meet?
Yeah, I think a lot of what they're doing is as a result of losing a reputed $100 million last season. And for me, as much as I hate to see it happen, it's very easy for people to be critical about what they've done, which, I mean, the assumption now is that they'll never be able to sign Trevor Bauer, which I think is probably accurate. I think the one that really has shaken people up were the rumors that they're trying to trade Sonny Gray. It's easy to be critical, but if it was your $100 million, maybe you would be more inclined to accept the fact, grudgingly, but you would accept the fact that they, along with a lot of other ball clubs, and I know we don't care about other clubs because, I was affiliated with the Reds, and you're a very prominent member of the Reds network, so we care about what they do. I would be disappointed in the Sonny Gray thing. If they are taking calls from clubs and making offers, that's one thing. But if they are actively shopping him, that's another thing. And they have a glaring need for a shortstop. I think they're looking to improve their bullpen. But aside from that, I truly believe, and have felt this way last year, when guys whose baseball cards would indicate that they're going to be a big-time offensive force, the Moustakases of the world and the Castellanos and people like that, which it never panned out. I still maintain that the shortness of the season had a lot to do with that. I think when you see these guys come out assuming they can play a reasonable number of games, I'm not ready to commit to 162 yet, but a reasonable number of games, far more than 60. I think you'll see these guys produce the way they have produced in the past with other major league ball clubs. But it's going to be an interesting winter to see the direction that Nick Kroll takes his club after he was named the general manager of the team.
And really, Marty, you kind of touched on that a little bit, that there's been some conversation this week alone about, will they come back on time? Are they going to wait to get everybody vaccinated? There's been a lot of talk about that. I think the last I read at the time of this taping that they had kind of shot that down, and they're wanting the players to report to spring training on time. So I don't know if there's going to be more negotiations with that. Like you said, are we going to get 162 in this year? Just kind of some of your thoughts on that.
Well, I understand the owner's position. They want as many players inoculated as they possibly can. Mm-hmm. And if that procedure interrupts the opening of spring training, which would then interrupt the beginning of the season, then they're willing to do that. The players are not willing to do that. The players they want to start on time. They want to play 162 games. And this is the impasse that the two groups have been to. And I know there was a big article at the time of this taping in the USA Today about this problem that exists right now. It's going to be interesting to see between now and whatever the date is, the normal reporting date in February, how many players receive the shot. And it's going to be very unfortunate if there's another battle royal that will exist between the ownership and the player union in light of what they all went through when they finally settled on 60 games last season. I wish there was a feeling of brotherhood between the two groups, but that's not the case. And on top of all that, they've got a new collective bargaining agreement that they have to negotiate after the 2021 season, which makes all of this even more important. So I would like to think that they could get started on time and they could play 162 games. I think it would be sensational if they can pull that off. The players apparently feel a whole lot more confident about that under the existing pandemic conditions than the owners do.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Switching a little bit of gears here, speaking of big news, Amanda, of course, in the news recently, just down the road from us here in Bowling Green, Vanderbilt University, Sarah Fuller, the first Power 5 female to score points in a football game, just a history-making moment for us, as well as about a month ago, I guess it's maybe been a couple weeks ago, Kim Ng for the Marlins was named the GM. And I think you could probably say that it's probably well past time that these things happen, whether it's in baseball, whether it's in college football. I've even heard some narratives. It's like, oh, well, Vanderbilt, they were 0-8. They just kind of threw a girl out there and the same thing can be said. Oh, it's like the Marlins aren't really that good. And what are some of your thoughts on that? I mean, is this just past time that we kind of come around to get rid of the old boys club?
Well, I'm not sure football will never not be an old boys club, but I don't know that we're going to have linemen, suiting up in the NFL or even any college football game. But however, I do think women certainly have a place in sports. I mean, we're pretty stinking smart. It doesn't matter if you've never put on a jockstrap, so to speak. We understand competition. We understand we all have a willingness to win. And I just thought the whole thing has been outstanding. I'm glad that people are realizing that we can bring something to the table other than, the marketing people or the sideline reporters. And having these girls grow up today to see what these women can do. I mean, I was never brought up thinking I couldn't do anything I wanted to, but I'm not sure a kicker for a Power 5 conference football team was one of those things I thought I could be. But I love that kids today get to see that and realize there is no boundaries. Hopefully this glass ceiling has been shattered for all time. And these women are proving that, I think, every day by either suiting up or by becoming the general manager or a coach or whatever it happens to be. I'm 100% all for it and thrilled to see it.
So you never wanted to be a place kicker for the Thundering Herd in your days at Marshall?
I did. Actually, I had no interest in that, but, I know enough about football and, if they wanted to hire me as an assistant, I think I could have done that just fine.
I got to be careful what I say because they trounced our of course, the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers are in the same division. So, yeah, and I believe that I know this is a baseball interview and I'm turning it around on football, but I believe they're about 7-1 and they top of the Conference USA. Is that correct?
And they should not have gotten beaten the game that who was it they got beat by? Some team they were supposed to beat by like 30, right?
Was it Rice?
It might have been Rice. I was going to say Rice, but I think it was Rice.
Pretty sure it was.
Yeah, I guess the championship game is this weekend. Is it Saturday?
I think so. I'm going to be so glued to the television this weekend. It's going to, with all the good games that are going to be played, I'm going to settle down in my chair when the first kickoff takes place at 12 o'clock on Saturday, and I'll be there for all time.
Yeah.
I know I will be too. So, Marty, really kind of touching back on the 2020 season, there were a lot of rule changes. Of course, we mentioned a little bit about the 60-game sprint. Are there any things that you saw, even, of course, in your first year of retirement, that you would like to see going forward, whether it's the designated hitter rule, the runner on second in extra innings, or anything like that you would like to see moving forward, or even the playoff, the way the playoffs kind of were shaking out near the end?
Well, one, I think there should be more teams in the postseason. I think they've established that. Now the question will be, when they sit down to talk across the table, how many more teams will be accepted into the postseason? I mean, I think baseball in many respects operates in the dark ages. You had the the NHL, the NBA, even the NFL have a wide variety of teams in their postseason. And except for the wild card editions a few years ago, baseball seemingly has stopped there. They have to add more teams. How many? That's their problem. But I think you need more. I think we saw that in the postseason of this past 2020 year. I'm grudgingly accepting the designated hitter because I think now it's inevitable. I've never been a big fan. probably less now than I've ever been because of the nature of the game, which is all about strikeouts, home runs, and walks. And now you add another potent bat to the lineup, or potentially potent. So I'm accepting that. The thing I really liked, I liked the second runner at second base to begin an extra inning. I thought that was sensational. And for those people who are diametrically opposed to it, I would just say step back, take a big deep breath, and think about the strategy that's involved in that scenario in both dugouts. Not only the team that has that lead run at second, but the team that's trying to keep that lead run from scoring. And so I'm a big fan of that. I think it cuts down, and I think we need that today with pitching being such a more important part of the game, especially in the bullpen area. I think you need it more than ever to keep from having to play 15, 16, 17, 18 innings. So I like that. Whether or not that ever picks up any steam at all, I don't know. But essentially, they're the things that I watched and the things that I feel like I have an opinion on.
What about, can I ask a question? What about the 3-batter minimum?
I don't mind with that at all. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I know there are a lot of baseball people that hate that, but I don't have a bit of a problem with that. And again, that's strategy involved in that too. We have so little strategy in the game today other than seeing if your 165-pound shortstop can hit one of the upper deck at Great American Ballpark, which I have a real problem with.
Yeah, you mentioned the runner at second. They'd actually started that a couple of years ago in, I believe, the Low A Midwest League, like here with the Bowling Green Hot Rods as well as the Dayton Dragons. And I know there was some conversation about that, but there were a couple of games that we covered for the radio station, of course, when the Dragons came to town, and we saw that. And it adds a level of excitement to the game that I think a lot of people didn't even realize was there.
It sure does. Yep.
And speaking really of minor league baseball, and this question is really for either one of you, or you can both chime in if you'd like. This past week, at the time of this taping, the minor league had a contraction with a lot of their teams, getting it down to 119 teams, losing about 45 teams. And there was some question for a while, even last year at this time, if the Chattanooga Lookouts and the Daytona Tortugas would be part of that team. Luckily, they kind of made the cut, for lack of a better phrase. But there's a lot of teams in kind of Reds country. I'm thinking of the Lexington Legends, the West Virginia Power, which is not that far from Ashland, Kentucky, where you're from, Amanda, that are no longer going to be affiliated with baseball. The Billings Mustangs, which are kind of going to a different type of league, which have been one of the oldest affiliated, I guess, with the Reds, being the parent team for the longest time. One of the longest times leads back to the 70s, and they've been around since around World War II. So I guess I kind of want your overall thoughts on what transpired in the past week in minor league baseball as a whole.
Well, we all anticipated it, Jason, because there's been so much talk about it leading up to the actual setup. I think it's unfortunate that it's come to this. However, I certainly understand that they're trying to save money anywhere they can. I know that comment would fall on deaf ears to people in Billings, Montana, and in some of the other towns that have been used to having professional baseball affiliation with a big league club that no longer will have that luxury. But I do think that the picture is a little brighter because of you mentioned Billings is going to be affiliated with a league of teams that will not be have a working agreement with a big league ball club. However, I think that there will be, in most cases, where baseball is going to contribute money to some of these leagues to keep those leagues going in a general way. Not specifically the Reds are going to pay to the Billings people or whatever the case might be. So I don't think it's as bad as it seemed to be in the months leading up to the final decision. We'll never know again. But the thing that people have to understand is when I was a kid growing up in Virginia back in the 50s, there were so many minor league baseball teams. It was incredible. I know when I got my first job in radio in North Carolina, and at one time back in the 40s and 50s, the state of North Carolina had something like 20 towns that had minor league franchises. That disappeared. And I'm sure when that started to to take place. People complained and thought this will be the end of minor league baseball. They condensed the number of cities that had ball clubs then, and they're doing it again now. Now, if it ever got less than what it is right now, I'd be very, very concerned, because a lot of guys are going to be looking for jobs that had been playing minor league ball with a club that had an affiliation with a big league ball club. Now they've got to take a second look and decide whether they want to hook up with an independent team in the hope that they play well enough to attract a big league ball club or not. So it's a time of change, and it's unfortunate it had to hit the minor leagues, but a fact's a fact.
And really go ahead, Amanda, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, for me, I grew up a Reds fan, obviously, but the closest minor league team for us was right up the road in Huntington. We had the Huntington Alley Cats. And I remember, I must have been in high school, maybe, so I wasn't really a kid, but anytime you take baseball out of a community is not good for the game. Correct. Obviously. You want kids to be exposed. And some families, frankly, can't afford to go to a big league ballpark and pay those prices. Even if you're sitting in the Kroger bleacher seats and getting the Kroger meal deal, that's all a great deal, but you've got to get to Cincinnati. And gosh, if there's a rain delay, there's so many factors. But when you have a ball team literally in your backyard, like I did with the Huntington Alley Cats, that just exposes more kids to the games, more families to the game, and it's just good for baseball. So I hope that, like Marty said, in fact, this is something he and I talked about, as we travel around, hopefully a lot more in 2021, to hit some of these minor league ballparks. I love going to a minor league game. You get rid of that third deck in a ballpark, and it's just, it feels like every game's a spring training game. They have good food. They have, great fans, great teams. It's a whole lot of fun. So that's on our list for next year.
Yeah, and really on the flip side of the coin, for as bad as some of that news sounds, there was also some good news with like the Midwest League, where you've got the Dayton. I keep going back to the Dayton Dragons and the Bowling Green Hot Rods here in town. They got moved up to High A, so they're going to, which
right.
were originally Low A. So they're going to see a higher class of baseball coming through our cities coming this summer, hopefully. So I think that's kind of the good side of all of the kind of contraction that happened. If you can say there's a good thing about contraction, but and on the flip side of the coin as well, last year when those initial teams started coming out, there were some rumors, and we got a lot of phone calls at the station, that the Hot Rods were going to move to a Reds AA affiliate, because that's back when we didn't know if Chattanooga was still going to be around. So there was a report, I believe, that came out on Ballpark Digest that was on the table. So, of course, again, as you were saying, Amanda, as a Reds fan, love that, because I'm like, I'm going to live at the ballpark even more. We're going to be covering for, we're going to start seeing all the old Reds coming down here, coaching. It was kid in a candy shop type moment. So, but I'm glad to see that there are communities that are still going to be thriving, and especially moving up in the Midwest League. I think that's a great thing to look at.
Agree.
For a lot of people. Jason Harbison here on ESPN 102.7, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Of course, we're talking with Amanda and Marty Brennaman. Thank you again for joining us, both of you. I know in this busy holiday season, so we're going to get to some really hard-hitting questions. We've had you both on the show many times, and that we never end with, anything but hard-hitting questions.
Absolutely.
I think one time at Reds, I know this is kind of in place of Reds Fest, Marty, but I thought we were going to lose our licensing agreement with the Reds, because I asked you about what you would do in a zombie apocalypse. The crowd loved it. They laughed, and you answered, and I thought it was a great moment. But I
don't remember what I said.
Well, I think I asked you, like, who would you want with you in a zombie if a zombie apocalypse happened, like, say, at Great American Ballpark, and you had to kind of fight your way out, who would you want on your side? And you didn't hesitate, and you said Ron Oster, because he would lick anything that came.
Yes.
And I'll stand by that answer.
And I believe one year Todd even asked, I don't mean to kind of go back and wax poetic, but I believe one year Todd asked you about Randy Macho Man Savage. You've got a daughter that's a huge WWE fan, and you're meeting him in the booth one time back. I think it was the 80s or maybe early 90s.
Yeah, late 80s. That was an interesting day.
I think you used the term deranged canary on our show. He looked like a deranged canary in his yellow outfit.
He did.
So really, I guess that kind of leads to, how has retirement been for you? Obviously, you can't travel around too much, but you guys, it looks like from what I'm seeing on social media, you are getting out kind of at safe distances. There's been a couple, I guess, selfies with Marty kind of things going on.
Yeah, there has been. I don't know if he was asking me or you, but
Either or.
We decided probably in May or so that, hopefully, and so far, knock on wood, we've managed to stay healthy, as have our families, trying to get on with life as best as you can, as safely as you can. And we have found that you can do that anywhere. You don't have to necessarily stay on your couch. We have a place in Florida. We have not been on an airplane since March of last year, which is just unheard of. We had several trips, obviously, that we've had to cancel. We were supposed to be on a cruise in Europe and a cruise in October. I mean, we had lots of things like that planned. But we have managed to, I bought a little Mini Cooper off Thompson McConnell Cadillac, and we have put some miles on that thing by driving to Florida, but finding out along the way, because we've really never done car trips, that we can stop somewhere and not drive the full 14 hours in one day and go to Savannah or go to Charleston. So we've made the most of it, I think, and have not just sat in the house the entire time. And as far as retirement for me, thankfully I like him a whole lot, and it's not been too bad. We haven't seen family very much. We haven't been in Chicago. We haven't been to Ashland very much because, again, you certainly don't want to make anybody sick. But I think we've plugged along. And this is going to maybe sound a little bit terrible, but for the first year for him to be retired, I was really worried how much I was going to miss the ballpark. And I missed the ballpark as much as everyone else did. So, by having the ballpark option taken away from me, it was probably a little easier for me this year. I don't think Marty's missed a beat at all, though, in terms of not missing going to the ballpark and not missing going to the games and broadcasting every night. It's certainly been different this year.
Yeah, I can tell you that kind of to go back to your point there, Amanda, that we did get to cover a couple games this past season, and it was one of the most eerie things. There's no fans in the ballpark. It was like almost futuristic. You go in there, of course, you're wearing your mask, you got to stay away from people, just the normal kind of things that you associate with baseball. I don't want to say that it looked like an atomic bomb went off or anything like that, but it was very futuristic, and it was just something that took some getting used to in the two times that we went up there. So I hope that baseball can get back to normal, and it was just so odd to just see baseball that way this past summer.
I remember you texted me actually from one of the games, and I just can't imagine not actually hearing the background of vendors and crowds and kids laughing. I mean, it just the whole year has been completely surreal. That's for sure.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. We're very blessed that we got the opportunity to go up there and cover a game, but I'd definitely rather there be thousands and thousands of fans in the stand, of course, for that. So a couple last questions here. Marty, it looks like you've already opened one of your presents for Christmas, a new Blackstone grill. For them. Yeah, so you're not keeping it in the living room, are you? You're actually putting it out on the deck or something? Or
We did.
We moved it. Yeah, moved it on the deck last night.
We were waiting for a cover. You can't set it out there without a cover, and that for whatever reason came 2 days later. So the whole thing was supposed to be a surprise. It got delivered to the wrong house. Our neighbor brought it over. The thing weighs 85 pounds. I have to haul it in. There's no way I'm going to hide it. I'm like, open this. This is your Christmas gift. So, yeah.
So now we got to wait for weather to be good enough to go out there.
I think it's going to be next week.
But next week, because it's unlike a grill. You can put meat on the grill and go inside, and then 5 minutes later go with a griddle. You got to stay there and continually toss and turn the food. So I think next week, in the middle of the week, the temperature is supposed to be up over 50 degrees, and we'll probably christen that baby next week sometime.
So one last question. I can't help just kind of look behind you a little bit there. Is this kind of you call this your man cave, or is this just kind of your basement command central? What do you call it? Because I'm loving some of the memorabilia that's behind you there.
This is all because of Amanda. We not to go into a long explanation about this room, but we dug through a lot of stuff and found baseball memorabilia that I had I had acquired over the years. Almost every bit of it was stuff that impacted my career. You know, a lot of people have stuff that they collect because they're fans of a particular team. Almost everything on the walls that we have in this room are things that had something to do with my career. And we dug out stuff that hadn't seen the light of day in 40 years. And Amanda had it all framed, and we've redone it actually twice. We had it all hung, and then just not sometime the last few months, we had a lady frame a lot of additional items, things primarily that came from my last week with the club, and had that hung. And now we're doing some remodeling down here. The room's an absolute wreck.
Yeah, you can't see the mess. The fireplace is being renovated. I'm getting a new bar top tomorrow, actually. So watch for social media in the next couple of weeks. It'll all be done. And we can have a home for all these bobbleheads I'm looking at, and baseballs that I found. Oh my gosh, I just found some completely exposed to the elements, faded ink. So we went and bought like 24 ball holders. So we have some more stuff to do, but it's getting there.
There she is, Jason.
There's Millie. Yeah, I was wondering when Millie was going to make her cameo appearance on.
Say hello to Jason.
I'm Millie. Now, Millie's talked on our show a couple times in the background, of course, when we've had Amanda on talking about a night of their own, or we've had Marty on. So this is not her first time being on the Redlegs Radio Report.
No.